worked with all types of groups, from children to mentally retarded to senior citizens, and so they have a wealth of information there. I'm your moderator, substituting. I'm Becky Osgood from Los Angeles, connected with Square Dancing Magazine, and have been in the activity with my husband Bob for a long time, in most phases of the activity. To start today, let's see what type of individuals we're going to be sharing with this afternoon. Would you show us by a raise of hand how many of you work with beginner classes now? Great. Almost 100%. Super. How many have classes that are going to start in the fall? Again, almost 100%. How many of you have been working with your husbands and teaching classes, say, for 10 years or longer? Oh, wow. This can be fun. 15 years or longer. Good. Any of you less than 5 years teaching classes? A few of you, good. Any of you who work with callers to teach them how to teach classes, teach caller schools? A few of you. How many of you are from the East Coast? A few. And how many are from the Midwest? And how many are from the South? And how many are from the West? All right. As varied as you are, so varied are the people that come into our beginner classes. And we really have to realize that each year when we work with a beginner class, we're working with different people, as I'm sure you are aware of. There is no set, pat answer to how to plan a class. But we hope this afternoon to explore some of the ways that you have found successful and to share with you some of the things that we have done. And we hope that you will ask questions and let us explore together some of those answers. If each one of us today, including those of us up here, could take home one new idea to make a beginner class more successful, then the whole panel will have been worthwhile. Are you all well acquainted with each other? Would you introduce yourself to the person sitting behind you so it's just not your friend? All right, I want to lay just one quick ground rule. When we get to the discussion part of the program, and it's going to be really discussion from now on, whether it's questions or whether you have something to share with us, because we represent such a varied activity, will you, if you come to the microphone, just very briefly tell us where you are from, what type of area it is. Is it a one-club area? Is it a metropolitan area where there are 50 clubs? How many classes there are? Because the answers will be different pertaining to that area. And if you keep your remarks short, then feel free to get up and answer or talk on any subject you want to. But that way we'll be able to hear from more. I thought I would start and just ask Babs and Mary to share with you what type of class they are currently involved in and some of the things that they have done successfully in recruiting people. And then we will go from there with some questions. So why don't we start with Babs Grymes.
I just figured you were going to start with me first. My husband and I, like I say, have been teaching for 16 years. He's been calling for 16, actually. And we have a large club in the city of Houston, which has about, I'd say, 54, 55 active clubs in Houston. We dance in a building that was made just for square dancing. There are other clubs that dance there different nights of the week, and the acoustics are great, and it's really a lovely spot. Our classes go for 30 weeks at a time, and we introduce our friends and prospective dancers with what we call a fun night, or a beginner night, an introduction night, the first week. At no charge, we have good refreshments, and our couples bring their friends out this way. And then at the end of the evening, my husband tells them that we will start classes the next week. We teach before our club dances. Our classes are from 7 o'clock at night until 8:30 at night. And then the club dances from 8:30 till 10:30, and we dance on a Friday night. But we introduce ourselves this way and tell them that the lessons will start, say, next Friday night, and they're from 7 until 8. And it costs, we charge per couple per night instead of a blanket sum. We charge $3 a couple a night, which is about as cheap activity as you can find. $2 of the $3 goes to Pat, my husband. The other dollar goes to the club per couple. So the club is getting a little out of it also. And it's to them like paying per week. It's almost like they're paying dues. They feel like they are participating this way. So when they do come into the club and start paying dues, it's not such a big shock to them. We encourage our couples that come out. If the man, say, is out of town, that the wife come without him, maybe with one of the other couples that might be a friend of theirs, so he doesn't get behind, or vice versa. If something happens, we try to encourage one of the couples to come alone, because there's always people in the club that are square angels that will fill in with one or the other partner. I'm at a loss right now. We just try to prepare ahead of time for them. I know we feel like we may overlap because ours is before class activities. So we try to find out from our club couples that are active couples at the time how many prospective dancers we're going to have that night. Maybe if one couple comes in that way, they can bring someone. We were telling a while ago, my husband tells our dancers that are active dancers that when we start our classes, he will pay their dues for the next month if they bring in 4 couples to dance, to take lessons. And this kind of encourages them to stick it to him. They look forward to this. And this is kind of how we prepare. And that's what we'd like to see if you have some other ideas yourselves this way.
All right, Mary, this is now switching from Texas to Connecticut.
To New England, really. I think we do about the same in all of New England. There are many communities that are real rural. We have, in our area, we have several clubs within the 30-mile area. And we are already working on our next year's class. We have given demonstrations at the shopping centers. We have already gone to 2 churches where we have given demonstrations, either alone or we bring a square dance set with us so that they can show the easy figures, not hard figures, but the real, what would you say, the first 8 figures on the CALLERLAB list. Maybe 1 or 2 more, depending upon the group that we have. Our club members also start working with their friends that have not as yet started square dancing. We also advertise in the papers and on the radio that classes will be starting, and would you call such and such a number, which is generally our club president or my husband. Each club has a just slightly different opinion on how to gather their nucleus for their next year's class. We have, I don't know what you would say. We have used the JCs in our town. They have been very good. The Masons have been very good about giving a one-night stand for their own particular group. And we find that from this, if we get 1 couple, we feel honored because the next year they will bring in 2 couples from that same organization. The club handles all of our classes in such that they register them when they come in, and we have several couples that we ask ourselves, will you please take 1 couple or 2 couples and stay with them throughout the class season? And if they're not here, call them and find out why they're not here, why they had to miss. Maybe it was illness, maybe they were away. But be sure if something happened, maybe their car broke down, next week go after them and bring them in. And they appreciate this little kindness that you may do for them. And I think that's about all. When you ask questions, I can think of some more.
Would anybody like to share some ideas on how you recruit people into your beginner classes? Babs has said that her husband offers to pay a month's dues to any couple that will bring in 4 couples, which I have never heard of before. I know of clubs in our area that will offer some type of perhaps even a year's free dues to the couple who brings in the greatest number of couples into a beginner class. And Mary has talked about one couple bringing in another couple, which I think over the years on the various surveys that have been taken, word of mouth has proven to be the best recruiter that there is. But that doesn't mean that we should overlook any of the other ways, because if you get one couple from an advertisement, or one couple from a radio announcement, or one couple from the little business cards which your club prints up by the hundreds and gives you to pass out, it's one couple you didn't have. Anybody have any other ideas? Eleanor, would you want to go to the microphone, please? Right down the aisle. This is Eleanor Rowland from Washington.
Thank you, Becky. I wanted to ask her, when he gave back the money, was it if they just came one night, or did they have to stay for, or the 4 couples? Did they?
Are you asking Babs?
You're asking me?
Mm-hmm.
No, he tells our club members that if they bring in a square of dancers, that he will pay their dues for the next month, and they don't have to stay. If he just brings them that one night. We feel like if you give them a touch one night, that they're either going to like it completely or they're going to really kind of hate it, and they won't come back. But if they come back, well, it's just the one night they need to bring the 4 couples.
I know Max Forsythe told us years ago that he used to do that. He'd give them $4 for every 4 couples, or maybe one. I can't remember. There was one couple if they stayed for 10 weeks or something like that, or even 3 weeks.
Well, like our monthly dues are, I think they're $18 a month. So that's $18 they don't have to spend that month.
I had another question. You said your classes are from 7 to 8 on Friday night.
7 until 8:30.
8:30, and you run for 30 weeks.
Right.
How do you get through in that time? That's what I wonder.
Well, we say 30 weeks. Sometimes it goes over 30 weeks. If he doesn't tell the class that he's going to teach them 30 weeks, he just says that the lessons run around 30 weeks when the introduction night. But it depends on how far and how fast the class moves. If he feels like he hasn't touched on all the movements that he wants them to learn in 30 weeks, they go over 30 weeks. But never under 30 weeks.
Because they said we should go 40 weeks. We usually we have 2.5-hour class, and then about a half hour that's for refreshments, so 2 hours. And,
well, I think really the ideal time is 2.5 hours, but when you have to dance the same night your club dances, it makes it a little difficult.
Right, thank you.
Eleanor, I think one of the things that Babs' husband was sharing with us, he said he has an open-ended class, really. Well, he plans it for 30 weeks because it is on the same night as the club night. If it happens to be a group, which is a slower learning group, and we know that the groups just simply do not learn at the same level, he keeps them longer because it's on club night.
That's good.
And then when they're finished, then he starts his next group.
Thank you.
Any other questions or any other sharing on how you recruit? I've just been handed a card which was turned in, and it's the only card that's been given to us. I think your sessions tomorrow will have more. And this is on promoting, but I think it's really a comment, which is perhaps appropriate at this time, and it's from Helen Mayle. And it says, collect the names and addresses of interested parties, and I presume she means from your club members, and then send flyers with the class information, inviting them to attend a demonstration. Also, attend most fun nights. Well, I guess she means that she attends most fun nights with her husband to promote the classes, and it's great for recruiting. Yes.
On the recruiting, on this particular note, we do take the names and addresses of everyone that comes up to one of us. My husband, Jim, will say, anyone in the crowd that would like to be, that is the least bit interested in square dancing, to learn how to square dance and to join the fun that we have, and you have seen here today. He'll point out the girl in the red dress will be very happy to take your name, or the lady in the blue dress will be very happy to take your name. We take their name, address, and telephone number. They receive cards the size that Becky has just received. and they will also receive a personal telephone call. Now that's what we do in our area.
How many of you work with angels in your beginner classes? At least 50% of you. How many of you work with those angels prior to the start of class to ask and lay out for them how you would like them to help? A fewer number. Now, I'm sure that those of you who have been teaching classes a long time are so into your program of teaching that you really know what you're doing. But I wonder what would be considered about getting your angels together ahead of time so that you pre-solve some of the problems that occasionally come up with beginner classes where the angels perhaps in costuming, not dancing standard movements, perhaps talking when the teacher is teaching. What other problems come up with angels? Anybody shout one out? Too much help? How many angels do you work with in your classes? How many angels do you have? Do you limit it, or is it unlimited, or do you ask the people? Anybody speak to that? You ask them. And how many do you ask? Three couples, so that you never have a beginner couple sitting out, so that you can spread them around. Anybody work differently with angels? Have a different number? Yes. Why 4 couples? Now, do you have them dance by themselves if there are 4 couples? But they're not dancing as a star tip. They're dancing with the beginners. 4 couples. Anybody work with another number? Yes. You invite your whole club to come out. So I'm repeating this for the tape. You invite your whole club and those that can come to bring the couples that they know. Now, what if you have more angels than you do beginners? All right. So again, to repeat it for the tape, you don't usually have that problem, but if there are beginners, the angels will split them up and be sure they're on the floor. Yes. Right. You know, all of these suggestions are so good. I wish you'd just line it behind the microphone so I don't have to repeat it. We wouldn't take so much time. What this lady was saying was that when you work with angels in their class, the first night her husband gives all of the instructions, so it's done in front of the beginners also. Anybody, would you please come to the microphones? Anybody work with more angels or fewer angels? Anybody not use angels and for any particular reason? So you all use angels, basically, if you can get them. What do you do with a single woman? Eleanor, do you want to go to the microphone,
Please explain that.
Sure, bring the mic down. This is Eleanor Rowland again, and she's saying that they have a lot of single women, and if others of you have singles regardless of men or women, perhaps you could just get behind her to get this input. Well, while you're coming, we have another lady in the microphone back there. Please, go ahead. I didn't realize we had that. Is that on?
Turn the mic down. It's too high for you. Turn it down to your mouth. There.
I don't think that's on. We'll let Eleanor talk, and you come on up to this one while she's talking. Go ahead, please.
Well, we have a caller that has a club now, and so we weren't for a few years going to have singles because the wives objected to sitting there while their husbands danced. But now there's a place to go after they're graduated, so they don't mind. And they don't come all the time with their husbands because, you know. And so we do have singles, and they do come in and help.
Where do
us.
they go afterwards?
Harris has a club called the South Sound Singles.
So
and
they do.
They have a
They are
place to go now, so I, say, fine, you can come. Otherwise, we have no place for you.
All right. The next lady?
Yes, our angels are slower dancers. Rather than hurt their feelings and tell them they can't really keep up with the club, we say, we need your help. Come with our new dancers. And they learn patience, and they learn where their problems are.
What a gracious idea. Do you charge them the second time around?
Oh, no. We really appreciate them coming. And
What
it
a-
helps those. We're from Palm Springs, and we have a great many older people, strokes, and all sorts of problems. And this gives them the pride in helping.
So instead of losing them, you just keep them a little bit longer.
Sometimes they're 3-year angels, but they're proud angels.
How marvelous. Thank you. Nice idea.
We also have a singles club, so we run into problems with too many ladies. We encourage our club to come out to get to know the new people that are dancing and help fill the squares. This also, like the other lady was saying, gives them a chance. They build up their basic skills better because they are redoing them, going through them, and relearning, sometimes from a different position. So, and there's always, even in married clubs, there's a lot of single gals that come out, and we've kind of solved that by the way we advertise, and when they call, and we've got a lot of single gals, we try to get our guys to come out and help, and they've been pretty good about it.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Back to the subject of angels again. As the lady just before had said about the angels in her group being the slower dancers, in our club, most of the angels for a beginner's class are from the last beginner's class, and it serves the purpose of, most of them have brought people down for the next beginner's class, so they're friends, and they get an extra year of practicing before they're really that involved in the club level. And we have a certain number of angels depending on how big the beginner's class is. And there is a head angel who makes up a list, and each angel couple is in charge of a square for the entire duration of the class. If someone doesn't come for a week, they'll get a personal phone call to make sure that they're not ill or falling behind or whatever. And when the people eventually go into the club, they know somebody personally after spending all those weeks with them. And that works out pretty good.
That's a nice idea, and it also is getting them involved in club activities on a class basis. Thank you.
Betty Noonan from Wisconsin. We have quite a few single ladies that come to our club. We don't have enough male partners for them, so one lady learns the male position, and we encourage them to follow that position for a whole year, and next year they can come back and be angels for no charge and switch the position so they learn both the so-called male part and the female part.
That's different.
And in our promotion of the beginners classes, any one-nighter names that we obtain, my husband takes the Square Dance magazine, our Here 'Tis, and takes a section, or asks for an extra section. He cuts it apart, runs off copies, and any name we have, we send the whole class list for the whole area. That way you can select your night, your caller, or whatever, because some nights that we have a class, we'd love to have them at ours, but we'd rather they dance with anyone than not dance at all.
Thank you. That goes along with being very unselfish. A couple of terms that have come up in the last two speakers, gracious and unselfish. Nice words to consider when you're preparing for a class and you and your husband or wife, as the case may be, whoever the caller is, are looking for what you're going to bring to the class. Have any of you ever had the opportunity to sit down with your caller, with your hubby or your wife, and actually decide what you want this class to accomplish? What is going to happen to the class when it is all over? Obviously, if it's club-sponsored, you hopefully are going to bring the class into the club. What if it is not club-sponsored? What happens to it? Have any of you had any problems with it? Do any of you teach classes where it's an end, and you really haven't thought about this ahead of time or had the opportunity to? Nobody want to speak to that? Not a problem? Would you give your name and your area where you're from, please?
She's from Texas. I'm Mary Jo Smith, and I'm from Victoria, Texas. It's a small town, 50,000. We have 2 clubs. My husband was asked to... Why is that funny? Was asked to teach a complete set of lessons for a particular church on a particular night. They really wanted him to start a club for them, but you don't have 2 clubs in the same town of that size, you defeat your purpose. So he told them he would teach the set of lessons for them, but we would not form a club. Then they would have the option of joining either our club or the other club. Well, they seemed to enjoy it while it was a church activity, but out of 6 squares, which is a pretty good-sized class for Victoria, we wound up with 2 couples who danced for a while, and neither of them danced with us because they couldn't dance those nights. They had church meetings. And now, after 2 years, neither couple dances. So that was kind of bad. But we've had a lot of other good experiences.
But that's really almost an exception. It's a specialty group
Yes,
that has
it was.
asked you to teach. You did not leave them
Oh.
in limbo. You provided a place where they could go.
Yes, and really, to them, it was like a church activity. And most of the people were very church-oriented, and it was like, well, we just finished a Bible class, and to them it was the same sort of thing. You know, that was the class for 30 weeks, and so that's what they did.
Nice company.
But
Square dancing
we
in the
met a lot
Bible.
of people that we might not have, and we'll probably run into them, and they were well taught, and I feel like they had a really good experience. So it probably did square dancing good, although it didn't help our club any right then.
Thank you.
My name is Lorraine Murdoch from North Vancouver, BC. We are very fortunate to live in an area that we have a good number of clubs. In North Vancouver, we have just 2 clubs in our North Shore area in BC. But the one thing that has worked very well for us, we have 3 levels. It requires a lot of organization, a lot of planning ahead, and no matter what day it is of the year, my husband and I always end up discussing about square dancing and planning. Well, should we do this and do that? But one of the things that's really worked very well is we have a Monday night club, a Wednesday night club, and a Friday night club. And this year we've experienced a beginner class that has been very unusual. After my husband's 30 years of teaching, he says, I don't think I've run into a group where at 10 o'clock they'd walk right out of a square and leave 3 couples standing. And it's rather embarrassing for the caller. Fortunately, we have a lot of angels that come out on a regular basis. But one of the things that we found, Friday night is our mainstream +1, +2 program. And we encourage these people, if they can't come on Friday night, would they come to our second-year dancers and help out there? And where on the second year, we encourage them to come down to beginners and help out there, so that each group is not dropping to a level that is almost not as interesting to them. They're still helping each of the groups. But I think one of the things is that you really, with having the 3 levels, if people in our, like this year with our second year, we find that some of those people don't want to change nights. They don't feel they're quite ready for mainstream, but they can stay there, and there's nothing wrong with it. So I think you have to make them really feel that if they've got one night to dance, decide on what night they're going to dance, and just have a good time, and don't lose the fun of square dancing, and that's what it's all about.
Well, you're really setting a goal then before you ever start the class.
Very much.
Right.
I mean, you really have to plan ahead. Make those people feel that there's nothing wrong with starting all over. If they enjoyed this group and they wanted to stay at beginners, stay there. Just enjoy the association of the friendship of the people. And, you know, you meet so many wonderful people that, isn't that what it's all about?
This is one of the things, don't go away, Lucille, this is one of the things that sometimes the division of levels has caused the problem, because we've forgotten about the fun. And yet I would venture that most of you here would say that teaching the beginners is some of the most fun that you've had as a caller's wife. Well, it's certainly some of the most fun that those dancers have had. And if we could solve the problem where we had the goal of keeping this attitude, and perhaps it has to come from us as callers, then perhaps we would solve the problem when it gets up into, quote, different levels, not
and
necessarily
there are
higher.
some people, we've got a couple that have been in second year, I guess it'll be their 4th year now. They're still enjoying, every year a new group of friends come in there, and they're not feeling any worse for being there every year. They're just out having a good time. And that's what, when you see that happening in square dancing, you say, hey, we're doing something right. And, you know, as teachers, we just want them to enjoy the square dancing, and the one thing, there's disadvantages and advantages of levels, but the one thing it has done, it's made people feel that there's a place for everybody, and sometimes it separates friends. You know, sometimes one couple feels that they want to go on to challenge. Well, that's fine, but still come back and dance with us. And if we find that people are wanting to go on to other levels that we can't offer them, go, but just come back and visit us, you know, and just make them feel that they're welcome. And
I think we all find, in all being callers' wives, that there always has to be a place for beginner dancers. I mean, there has to be club levels that teach them to dance. So everybody in this room was a beginner at one time. And I think when we lose the perspective that you know, I'm so good there, I can't dance with these beginners, we've lost the joy of square dancing, really. We should have the club level clubs. If you want to go dancing a little higher level or learn a little more challenge or something, you can join these clubs, but don't forget your club level clubs. Those are very important. That's the backbone of your square dancing.
I think one of the other things that I'd like to share is that from year to year, we have lists of names of people, and we have never thrown one of those lists away. And so often, every year, we follow up with a phone call. This year, we recruit one couple, I guess it's about 6 or 7 years, and they're back dancing. It was worth all the phone calls and all the little notices you send out. So don't give up. I think really
long range.
Oh, yeah. Really.
That is a help because, you know, some people may finish a set of lessons, 30 weeks or 40 weeks or whatever, and at that time they think, well, I really don't have time to devote to this right now, but wasn't it fun? And maybe they've had teenage children that they're involved with or something, and maybe in 5 more years they can get away from this and get back to it, and it does. They remember the joy they had for those 30 or 40 weeks, and they will come back. And if we do follow up, it's great.
Yeah, one more thing is we do have an angel another way. The lady who picks up the phone every Saturday morning after our Friday night class and phones the people that haven't been there, and it's paid off because those people really, you know, it's nice to know that they've been missed.
Nice idea. Thank you.
I'm Gail Seastrom from Northridge, California.
Gail is the wife of the caller this morning, you know.
Yes. We have many large clubs in our area that have very successful classes, but we have a lot of little clubs that don't get enough club support to support a class, literally. So what they have done in previous years is hire one caller, and maybe 6 or 7 small clubs will get together and bring all the people who want to learn to dance. And then the club members act as the angels, and then they go back and they enrich their own club. And it has really worked out for these little tiny clubs that maybe only have 3 or 4 squares, and they can maybe only they get a square out of it, but it's one more square of membership that they didn't have, and they couldn't have supported a class all by themselves, and it's been really successful.
Has there been any problem of cooperation at the end of the class?
Well, basically what it is a caller-run class, and the people that are coming as angels, and they're coming to help support their own club eventually, and so it really hasn't been a problem. We haven't done it recently, but it has been successful in the years it has been done.
Would the individual members of the class be invited to go to all the clubs if they wanted to?
Yes, they can, and that does sometimes pose a problem because they may choose to go to another club and someone else from another club brought them originally, but it's one of the things that does happen because even after someone graduates from a class, they don't have to join that club. They can go on to another one. So it's.
But on the other hand, if it's explained in advance, then there really shouldn't be a problem.
You maybe have 1 or 2 couples that migrate to another club, but it usually isn't a problem. And it's helped the small clubs because they can't support a class, and it really has been successful.
Thank you, Gail. So even in a metropolitan area, you do have small clubs, as we all know. One way of handling a class. Yes.
Yes, I'm Pam.
Your name, please.
Pam Thorpe-Bjornson from Denver, Colorado. And I think one of the most successful classes we have ever had was one that my husband was called in to take over when another caller gave up on it. It was only 9 couples. And of those 9 couples, now this was 4 years ago, and of those 9 couples, we still have 5 of them dancing in the metropolitan area. There was no club behind it sponsoring it. So we were associated with 4 clubs ourselves. So during the whole class, we asked the different clubs if they would come and help Angel whenever they could. And so therefore they got to meet many people, and this way they got to know maybe what club that they would like to join. When the class was graduated, then these people had a choice where they wanted to go. and they all went to different clubs, but there's still several of them dancing.
Thank you.
Hi, Becky. I'm Dawn Perry, and I'm from Monroe, Louisiana, very close to Texas. One of the things in our area that we found has helped is, rather than all of the clubs in our area starting their classes in September, Tom and I start our classes in April. And that way, if someone cannot begin classes in September, they do not have to wait a full year. And also, because of other activities that people are involved in, they can maybe start at one time of the year when not at another, because of baseball and children, etc.
That's a good idea. And when we're talking about before class, probably one of the things that has to be considered before class is the caller cooperation within an area, just as here there is a caller that's going to start at a different time, so it provides the classes for the dancers that can't dance another time.
And we also find that most of our dancers come in from our class the year before. We make up a list. We send out letters. This year we were the host club for our state convention, which was 2 weeks ago. And we sent letters out before the convention to all of our people telling them that they had been turned in as potential dancers, and we invited them to our convention to come in and watch. And then we will also send out another letter and have them in to watch our club members dance before we actually start classes.
Now that's an idea I haven't heard of, but what a lovely idea to invite potential dancers to come to your state festival or a large festival in your area to see dancing, which certainly would help offset some of the bad publicity they may have seen on television with Western dancing that may be mistaken for square dancing or clogging, and I'm not putting clogging down, but a lot of people associate it as being beginner square dancing. Whereas if you knew you were going to have a large activity in your area and you had lists of potential dancers, and if all the callers that were going to be teaching classes had those lists and could invite those dancers, if the festival had the space for them, that would have to be worked out. What a wonderful way to see good square dancing.
Well, our convention center is very large, and we had one of the dances was in the arena, so we could sit them upstairs, and they were not in our way. Many of them did come. As a matter of fact, one of them works with me, and he came by the next day and told me how very much he enjoyed going, and they can't hardly wait now to get into class. So I don't know how many others showed up, but I do know that they came. And so it would help in some of the other areas.
It might even work in an area where they didn't have the facilities, which you're fortunate enough to have, where they might be invited to a Saturday night hoedown. You might have to do it several hoedowns over a period of time in order to have the space where people could sit down. Thank you for sharing that.
Hi, I'm Carol Summers from Fairbanks.
Carol, you want to pull the mic up a little bit?
Okay, I'm Carol Summers from Fairbanks, Alaska. And we are faced with one of the major problems that we're a very small area. We're very rural. We're spread out. There are maybe 20,000 people in Fairbanks, but you might find 10 of them in one spot at one time. My husband and I, teach 3 classes a year. We have found that because of the cold weather and the severe winter conditions that we have, that sometimes our winter classes can be very large. But when the sun shines, we lose our dancers. So we have found that in order to maintain our dancers, we have to teach a summer class as well and bring our winter classes back out so that they don't lose the activity. Fairbanks is got a lot of problems with the winter and so forth. And one of the ways that we find by keeping our dancers going year-round is that we hold special workshops for our dancers in the way of teaching them how to build their costuming, because we have a large expense up there. It may cost us 3 times to hold a class and to get our dancers ready for classes than what it costs in the States here. So we prepare them by bringing them down, and I hold or try to hold seminars for sewing and things like that for the women so that they're not so frightened about the expense of square dancing, because we find that this scares them off when they go down and they want to buy a dress and it's $120 instead of $60 or $40, or where they pay $50 for a crinoline where we might be able to buy them here for $20. And so I teach them, or I attempt to teach them how to make them, and I find that this keeps our class rather large because we don't scare the people off from expenses. And that's a real big problem up there that we're faced with.
Thank you. Alaska is different. I remember when Bob and I were doing the festival up there, and it was 4th of July, and we saw this little boy sitting on the stoop of a hotel clutching his bag of fireworks, and we heard his daddy say to him, "You can shoot those off as soon as it gets dark." And at 2 o'clock in the morning, he was still sitting on the stoop clutching this little bag of firecrackers. Yes.
I'm Pat Walker from Seattle, and we have quite a few clubs up there. But one thing, we teach 2.5 hours a night for 25 weeks. And we have 2 clubs that we teach for. And about the 5th or 6th night, I give them a sewing seminar. And sometimes the club will also bring in, maybe the 4th or 5th night, a group from one of the square dance shops to show them what the shops have. But then I will follow it with my square dance book and show them how that they can sew things much cheaper. And also, after about the 7th or 8th lesson, my husband will get together with both of the presidents of the club and talk to them and ask them if it's all right for them to exchange, like if one couple is sick on Sunday night, if they can come on Thursday night, or vice versa, and make up that class or get extra practice. And that has been working out pretty good.
We're probably infringing a little bit on during class time, which comes tomorrow, but it is a good suggestion. And speaking of costuming, one of the things that we all can do before a class starts is certainly talk to our angels about appropriate clothing to wear at the very first few lessons of class, so we don't scare the dancers away with our more elaborate party dresses. Yes.
Hi, I'm Nancy Wilson from Grants Pass, Oregon, and my husband actually calls in Cave Junction, which is a very small town. We're from the valley, from the Medford to Cave Junction area, and in Cave Junction we are fortunate in that they have a Labor Day festival sponsored by the Lions, which is a good way of getting advertisement. And our festival is the biggest event, on their whole weekend. And we have it outside. We have a hardwood floor that we set up with a lot of work. And we either have it on the tennis courts or the baseball field, anywhere they give it to us. And we have it 2 nights and a workshop during the day, plus the Monday we're in a parade and we dance in the float. And this is our biggest form of advertisement. And there's people that go every year, and after like 3 or 4 years, we're picking up people who have been watching us every year during our exhibition. Plus, we have the printed cards, which is a postcard. I got a cough drop from my mouth here. Which we put their name and address right on it. On the back side is printed on, this is your free ticket to the first night of square dancing for a night of enjoyment, our cost, come join us. We take their names off and put it on a list so that they don't show up the first night. We hold 2 nights free, the 3rd night they pay. So anybody watching, all our club members are wandering around with cards, and we'll just take any name that they even look interested that night while we're doing the exhibition. And then we send the cards out, and we follow it up with a phone call if they don't make it. And the third thing, someone said that they had April classes. We have had in our area a January class, so that if they cannot make the September class, they can go to January. Also, if you have, which is not fun to do, but if you have people who are just not making it with the class and seem to be falling behind, you can suggest that they start over in January, and they feel they're that much ahead of the January people to where maybe they can stay up before they graduate in June or whatever.
Do you handle talking with them, with the particular couple that may be having a problem, or does your husband?
Oh, my husband does. Yes.
Because that's always a delicate...
It is. The club always opts out and gives it to him. I'm usually with him, but he is much better at that sort of thing. And we had to do it very rarely, but it's not easy to do. It is easier if you have the January option to wear. Usually by about November you can tell, and you can say, hey, they're starting a new class maybe, rather than saying, wait until next September, which is hard to tell them to do. But if you have a fairly good moving class and you've just got the 1 or 2 that are really... We don't do it unless we pick up the complaints from our class. Our class has officers. They elect officers in their class. And their president is their representative. If they come to us with enough complaints, we feel, by then something's to be done. But it's nice to have the January option.
Yes, and that again would go in the pre-planning, and I suppose that if an individual caller didn't have a second class starting as soon, he perhaps could work with a caller in the area that did.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. In our area, there's 12 clubs, I think, 10 callers and 12 clubs, and we have our own caller association, and they really work well together and passing around any help that they can get in that way.
Do others of you use that free card the first night, postcard type thing? A few of you, but not too many.
Have you found that first card is fairly successful in getting people there, that free night? Anything for free.
I'm Phoebe Hay from Aurora, Colorado. I'm not teaching class, but I wanted to go back to the very beginning and planning of classes. In the class before club that you mentioned, we found was very successful because the club came and danced with the class, and there was never the problem of transition between class and club. They never knew they weren't part of the club. And I found that was very good, and since you didn't mention that, I thought we might mention it.
We found that our club doesn't dance until 8:30, but it seems like after about the second week of the lessons, our club members themselves try to get there about 8 o'clock to socialize with the dancers between their tips. 2 or 3 squares of our own club members have arrived. He will have them fill in squares with the beginners and tell our club members, he said, I want you to fill in with the dancers to see how good they're dancing. And this makes them feel like, gee, I'm doing so good, I get to dance with the big boys. So that helps.
It's extremely difficult, I think, for the caller to teach class and follow with the club. He has to be pretty sharp, I think, to make the transition, but I think it's very good for club.
Thank you, Vivi.
Hi, I'm Margie Keys from Redding, California. And we do something, we have tickets printed that we have our club members pass out to their friends, and then we award some kind of a prize to the person we have them write on the back of their ticket. Well, actually, my husband uses his business cards, and so it has his name and phone number. And then the club member who gives that out puts their name on the back, and then we have some kind of a little, token type prize for them for getting the most new dancers in. And Bill always tries to do some benefit type things. He's, really willing to give his time to the churches and the schools, and we've done a lot with the schools, family type nights. And that seems to be really good, publicity is not the word I want.
Public
anyway.
relations?
Yes, thank you. With the schools and things, since we do use the schools. And it also shows people that square dancing is a good thing instead of what you were saying, maybe in comparison to the Western dancing they might see in the movies or whatever. But it draws people out. And we encourage a family type atmosphere, although we don't have that many. Our kids, some of our own children have danced, but they're teenagers now and they're, too many other things going. But we have some other families who brought their kids in, and the people really seem to appreciate, once they realize the kids are there seriously, they're really glad to have them too. And as far as the angels, we too encourage some of the people who maybe have had more difficult time in the past to come back, because we could really use their help. And it also will give them a little bit of more sure-footedness going through, and because they will have, that extra hold on things. I had something else, but I can't remember what it was. So,
you can get back in line if you think about it.
Thank you. Speaking of that, public relations, even in pre-planning for a class, is something that we shouldn't overlook, because now Babs uses a hall which is built particularly for square dancing, which is marvelous. Not all of us have that facility for us, and I'm not sure where your class is. Mary's Dance in schools, which a lot of us use, or recreation halls for the Parks and Recreations Department. And if you want to keep your halls available for you for your future classes and clubs, of course, then public relations is something that we all need to be very aware of. And by doing these special one-night stand parties that you're talking your husband does, this is really staying on the side that your bread is buttered on. And not only is going to attract people into your classes, but is going to retain your halls for us. And it's terribly important that we don't overlook this, even down to the simple little things of keeping the halls clean. Now, most of us have no problem with that. Seldom have I walked into any dance hall where square dancers have been, but they haven't kept it clean. But it's one of those strange things where it happens once, and the park people remember it. They don't remember the dozens of times that people kept it in order. And so perhaps if these classes are going to eventually become clubs, these are things that we can help our classes learn right along with us as teachers from the very beginning to help us do it. Yes?
Right, Bev McLaughlin from Brisbane, Australia. Just sort of commenting on all things that have been said. We've only just started having angels, or the term angels in Australia. We've always had our dancers that have come along and helped out. And what we generally do is request that the club come along, preferably bringing extra beginners or beginners to help out. We're a family, a lot of our clubs are family run, which means that we have children. The one minor problem we have is that the children are learning a lot quicker than the adults. And sometimes some adults don't like this. So what the kids do, they don't like dancing with the adults either. So they get their own little squares up and off they go. But we don't sort of keep the kids apart because the kids of today are our square dancers of tomorrow. With our beginners classes, we run them at the beginning of our year, which is February. And then what we have started to do now, our state body has started to run a beginners class in September. And what we do is 3 of the society callers are asked if they would volunteer to run this course. And once it finishes, we are then given all the beginners, all clubs in the area of the city of Brisbane, and then they have the opportunity to pick where they want to go. It's sort of which suburb is closer to their home. What else? We sort of, we really, all our clubs would be probably small in comparison to the clubs here in the state. 4, 5, 6 squares is probably a maximum, but there is about 20 clubs in the suburb or in the city of Brisbane. And generally each club just has their own beginners class, and then we have the one at the end of the year. But I'm sort of picking up all these ideas of the angels. I think that's really great.
Stay there for just a moment. For those of you who've never had the opportunity to dance in Australia, they have a different way of squaring up than we do here, which is interesting, and you certainly... I think we used to do a lot more mixing in our classes and clubs than we do now, at least in some of the areas. But tell us how you form your squares.
Right. That brought back another thing I forgot to mention. We have a roundup. And the caller says, right, everybody up for a roundup.
This is like saying square up. They say round up.
That's right. And we form 2 lines, males on one side, females on the other. Or we can form 4 or 8 lines, and we go from there. You don't dance with your partner. You don't walk up with your partner. You just line up. And you mix with everyone that's in the area.
In other words, it becomes like a grand march, and as you meet, that becomes your partner.
More or less comes like a stampede if you're a lone dancer, which is one thing that sort of women are resenting, and we are sort of getting into the fact of having more square-ups. But talking of lone dancers, we do have a lot of single ladies that come, and we are overcoming this problem by getting them to go through the beginners class as a man, and making sure that they do the whole class as a man, and then at the next year to do it as a lady. We get them to wear a sash or something that's easily distinguishable that they are a man, so that you know what's going on. But we are also trying to educate people to the fact that women can dance the male part. Being a caller's wife, I have to regularly dance as a man, and I really can't see the problem in it. And they say, well, you've got a dress on. But I said, APD dancing is basically what it is. You should know where to be at the right time, and that's what it's going through.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, that microphone I don't think is working, so come on down here.
I think they fixed it.
Oh, did they fix it? All right. Why don't you go ahead then?
Okay. I'm Joanne Morris from Sacramento, California, and I didn't realize that so many of us all shared the same things. I found this very interesting this afternoon. In regard to the long-range plans that you talked about, Becky, we also do a long-range plan in that we do basics on Monday night and a mainstream class on Tuesday night before moving them into the club on Wednesday night. And at anywhere along the way that they are comfortable dancing, that's where they stop. We call it comfort zone dancing, and it's working out very well for us.
What an interesting name, comfort zone dancing. Something
Roger
to consider.
came up with that. As far as this problem of bringing the people the angels that are not quite making it in the class back a night, we strongly recommend this also. And unfortunately, I think it's unfortunate because it's the least part of my job that I like. That is my job to talk to them, leaving Roger free to not have to worry about such things when he's thinking of his program. I also noted that they had a sewing seminar, somebody said. Well, we have the local square dance store there, and a couple of years ago I started a thing called a petticoat social. I called it a social because we invited all the new dancer ladies. The gentlemen were invited if they wanted to come, but the invitation went to the ladies, and I sent an invitation by flyer and going around personally to the clubs to pass this out. It saves my voice in the store when all the ladies come in and want to know how full they should wear their petticoats and how long they should wear them and how they should wash them and such as that. And I particularly found that sewing thing interesting that the lady talked about, though I don't sew myself and I can't offer that. Despite the fact that I sell dresses in the store, I will have a lady who does know how come in and do that, because if I show them how to make their dress inexpensively, I'm sure they'll buy their shoes from me. Okay.
Thank you, Jeanne. Yes.
Good morning. My name is Eileen Reed, and my husband and I call and teach for a club in Paulsville, Washington, which is also definitely rural. It amounts to about 8,000 people. Our council takes in approximately 13 clubs, and in the late spring and summer, towards the end of August, our Callers Association has a meeting at which time they put together all the information for the fall classes. Then we have this printed up and distributed throughout the council area so that all clubs and all callers benefit from all promotion and all publicity. We feel that it doesn't make any difference what club you dance with, what night you take lessons, or who you dance to. It's the fact that you are dancing that is important, and that is the main point. Another thing that we deal with, again, I assume because of our rural status, is hunting season. And almost half of the calls...
Four-legged?
Yes. Almost half of the calls that I get in regards to lessons will come up with the question of, what do I do while my husband is hunting? And I will tell them, well, you come anyway, irregardless of if he will miss 1, 2, 3, or even 4 lessons right in a row. It does not make any difference. You come, and there will be a partner there for you to dance with. When your husband comes back, we will make arrangements for him to catch up. And usually what happens is that when they are done hunting, they let us know, and we will make arrangements for however many extra couples we need to have. And we normally have our lessons from 7:30 to 9:30, and we will have a half-hour lesson prior to the regular lesson to catch these gentlemen up. And it has worked extremely well.
That's a very, very good idea.
And the third thing, we did something new this last year in that we had what we called a refresher class. It only ran for 10 weeks, and this was strictly for the people that had gone through class previously and then had quit dancing because they did not dance during the summer and they felt they had forgotten too much to come to a club dance. And my husband went back through previous classes and called these people up that we knew were still in the area, we knew were still interested in dancing, and said, hey, Friday night out at Bridlebeck, we are going to have a refresher class. Why don't you come out and give it a try? You really haven't forgotten as much as you think you have. You don't forget that easy. And we had approximately 4 squares show up for this refresher class. I'm not sure exactly how many of them are still dancing because they weren't all our class people. But it worked very well, and I'm sure that in the future we will do it again.
In other words, what you're really saying in your pre-planning for your classes, consider two other things. One, extra work for those people that have to miss something, whether it's hunting or whether it's illness or some other seasonal problem. And secondly, consider possibly a short-term refresher class for those that perhaps were in class 2 or 3 years before but aren't dancing.
Yes,
Both
very
good
much
things
so.
to consider. Thank you for sharing
Yes.
them.
And one other little quip that I will share with you. In our council area, all of our callers share one little quip with their classes. And this is at the beginning of class, that everything will go very well if you will listen to learn and then learn to listen.
Very good. Thank you. Oh, let's take the one in the back first. Thank you.
My name is Karen Saunders, and I'm from Federal Way, Washington. This mic's a little bit too tall here. I forgot to mention a little while ago, we have 3 different clubs, and they dance. Each club dances at 3 different levels. And in our singles club, we have our gals dance. We have a lot of extra gals sometimes. My husband has started in the last year and a half. He's become very conscious of it, and he started teaching opposition in his beginning classes. And he's having the gals dance the guys' parts, and the gals that are dancing the guys' parts have gone through a basic set of lessons with us previously, so they do know, their basics from their own position. He is trying to concentrate basically on teaching right-hand dancer, left-hand dancer, instead of specifying by sex. They feel a little bit more comfortable. They don't, because we get a lot of this where, well, I don't want to dance with another girl. And it doesn't seem to be quite the problem it was when it was first started. And he has become very conscious of it. And then with our new classes, we try to get them involved right away with not necessarily club functions, but make them feel a part of the club. They help with cleanup, putting up chairs, as they get to know the people. The club is right there, involved all the time. They also help plan like their level dances when they're ready, after they've gone through their number of weeks. They plan their level dances. They help plan the graduation dance to an extent, and then the club, helps them with that. But we get them right involved, and we haven't had as many people drop out because they feel like they're more a part of it. The group, they get to be more friendly and have made more friends, and they stay longer.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Jerry Sprout from Medford, Orient. My husband and I, we have 2 clubs. One, we travel 90 miles one way in Klamath Falls. And what we're doing over in Klamath is, we just started last year, we don't graduate, we promote. We promote them into the next level of mainstream. They dance in that, say, for 3 or 4 months, and then go on to the plus. We were having people graduate coming into, into plus 1 and 2 that weren't ready.
Is this on the same night? They stay on the same night?
No. We go over there twice a week, and we found it's really worked out a lot better. The dancers like it. They're not feeling like they're being pushed from one to another, something that they're not really ready for. It's the only club in the area, so the club has a lot of activity, and it really makes it hard for one club to have classes, have mainstream, have plus 1 and 2, and on from there. So we have started this, and it's really worked out really well for us and for the dancers.
Good. Different approach.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, at the back microphone, please.
I'm Mary Graham from Palm Springs. We don't have beginners and intermediates. Our club was started off called the Cactus Kids, so our beginners are the Cactus Sprouts, then they become Cactus Kids, And when they have plus 1 and 2, they're cactus blossoms.
Oh, very clever name. Yes, the next lady, please.
First of all, I'm Marg Weber from Victoria, BC. First of all, I must say that from what I'm hearing, most of you run club-organized beginners classes in the Victoria area. We're all caller-organized classes. But over there, Jack and I have found that we only take a class every other year. We work with another caller who takes the class on the opposite year. And the second year, and of course we're old-fashioned, we still believe in teaching rounds in class. And we feel that if you don't teach them then, they're never going to learn. So we teach them the basics, a few easy rounds, and then we go on. The second year...
Mark, let me interrupt you just for a minute. See a show of hands, how many work with any rounds in beginner classes?
Oh, that's marvelous.
Thank you. Go
we
ahead.
keep hearing how many callers are not teaching rounds any longer. Anyhow, what we do is we go along and we have our class from September. Probably this year it will go to the end of May. We've had flu in Canada, something terrible. But we graduate them, encourage them to go out, dance in our club, any club that they would like to go to. Hopefully they will join our club. But what we ask them to do in September, come back on the same night as they have been taking their classes. Our club dances on a Friday, our class is Monday. And then we teach them more rounds. We teach them the rounds, the classes dancing. But we also give them a lot of the quarterlies, the later on basics that are in the mainstream. We tell them when you go out and dance and somebody calls a basic and you have trouble, write it down somewhere before that night over and come back and say, you didn't teach this well enough. Give it to us again. And we find that by Christmas time, these people are easy with their rounds, they know their basics, and we find that second year of carrying on and just having a class every other year has really worked well.
Well, I know it's not just in Victoria, not just in British Columbia. I think this is more true in Canada than it is in the United States, because I know on the Eastern Seaboard they keep them for 2 years also. And I've been very successful for that length of time with classes and very comfortable dancers by the time they get out. Just out of curiosity, to answer her question, how many of you work with club-sponsored and club-run beginner classes? And how many of you are caller-run and organized classes? Probably 3/4 club and 1/4 caller, just for the tape. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
Next lady, behind you, please.
I'm LaRue Ponce, and I'm from Ogden, Utah. I've heard quite a few people here today talk about single ladies. I want you to know that my husband has a group of single ladies. One of the ladies came to him one time a while back and asked if he could come and call a dance if she got a group of women together. I was kind of shook up about that. I thought that was a little, but he went down and he has called for this group now for about 3-4 years, I guess, and they call themselves the Lively Ladies. And the only thing he asked was, when they began, the ones that danced the part of the boy would stay the boy, and the girls, the girls. And they've joined in with the festivals and with some of our beginner groups that dance when we have all of our clubs come together. And they're having a ball. And they invite me. I go down to their parties and different things that they have. And I was surprised because several of their husbands were there. They're men that maybe don't want to dance or haven't felt like they could or wanted to get involved. But if any of you in any of your areas would be interested in doing that, it's really quite a neat thing. I've become accustomed to it, and I think that it's something that's worth thinking about, because there are a lot of women that do not have partners. And they form their group, they have their parties, they have their things that they do, and it's really a neat thing.
Thank you for sharing it. I think what you're really saying is that before we start a class, pre-plan what's going to happen if you have a lot of single women. Either that direction or having your angels or have some place for them to dance when they get out of class. Yes?
Thank you. I'm Nanette Farrar, and my husband and I both teach lessons in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're lucky to have a lot of different clubs there, many clubs spread out. Back to the original thing we were talking about, how to recruit new members. We teach alone 3 classes a week for 3 separate clubs. And we find that we have some of the same angels that come, so when they have a couple that they'd like to teach, well, they go to one club. What we have found is that our club lessons run 40 to 45 weeks a year. And the first 3 nights of lessons are open to new dancers. And what we do is the first night of lessons is kind of like a fun night, and everybody dances for free. The second week, if the new lesson people bring another couple with them, that couple is allowed to dance free the second week also. And then this goes on for the full 3 weeks. This way, we find that those new lesson members, after that first night, they're more excited than just about any other night they ever dance. They've had so much fun. And it's a lot easier for them to recruit a couple, and this gives them a reason, not only because it's fun, but monetary reason, even though it's a small amount, to go ahead and ask another couple to come with them the next week.
How do you keep them for 45 weeks in an area where there's so much available dancing?
We have had no problem once we get them there. I mean, the classes slack off, but we are able to keep them dancing.
You keep the majority of the people in class?
I'd say we keep 50%. Not the majority, but overall 50%. Some clubs will keep more, some less, but we'll run them normally 40 to 45, but it'll vary depending on the class.
The question is, when do you start dancing?
We start dancing in September, and we usually graduate the end of June, our particular classes.
And that's interesting, too, because that area sometimes the population drops down before June.
Well, in the particular area we're in, we dance mainly the main Phoenix area, and a lot of the winter visitors that we have that come in dance in Mesa or way out on the west. And the main hub of Phoenix area seems to be your Phoenix residents that are year-round.
Then are you there for them to dance in a club during the summertime? Is there a place for them to dance?
Many of the clubs in Phoenix, they go dark during the summer because it's just too hot, and it's hard to get a hall that's cool enough to where you can dance and be comfortable. But there's always a place to dance. Phoenix has no lack of a place to dance.
And so if your beginners, after they've graduated, haven't danced in the summer, does the level of club dancing in the fall start a little lower so that it can start with them, or where do they dance in the fall?
Well, we have several levels that we dance. One of our clubs is nothing but mainstream, another one is 1 and 2. So there's always a place to dance, and we'll usually, in the fall, call more of a floor-level dance till we get them back to going again. But most of them keep going all summer.
Thank you.
Somewhere.
Yes.
I'm Gloria Bowman from Los Angeles, California, and LA is basically a caller, is the guest of the club, and most of the clubs run their own classes. In the classes that I've been affiliated with, we found that the area, the actual hall that we are dancing in, if it happens to be a school, we find out from the school when the adult education classes are being taught in that school, and we have club members go on those nights, put flyers on the cars, because when you have a parking lot full of cars, it doesn't take very long. People are already familiar with the facilities, and what's one more night out? It's away from studying. It's a fun night, but they don't have to go to a new place. Also, for the singles clubs of LA, I found when we are looking for new blood into the clubs, we go to the junior colleges, and part of the time we go up to UCLA. You do have to ask permission from their parking service if you can place something on the cars. Just saturate those parking lots. And many people will not take the flyer off the car and throw it on the ground. They will throw it in the car. So not only have they looked at it when they take it off the car, when they go to clean out the car, they're looking at it a second time.
Good.
So it really helps that way. We have one club that dances in the cafeteria of a major corporation. They dance in boroughs. We have the boroughs people go out, and during their lunch times, they put flyers on those cars. Look, right across the street is another huge corporation, Banco Remo, and they also hit those cars. So if you have a huge area of cars, it's very easy. I don't know, in a lot of places outside of LA, if your grocery stores have places, you can put notices, but most of the time, the grocery stores in my area have notices about dances. It's just some place where someone is going to constantly see it, and you just saturate them. And they eventually show up.
Thank you. We've had a question just turned in, our one question of the day. Maybe some of you would like to take a flyer at answering it. Our club has 15 active squares. Our hall dances 16 squares. The membership has lost interest in sponsoring classes because we have reached and kept our capacity for several years. But we know that new blood is important. What do we do? In other words, what do you do with a well-established club that perhaps doesn't feel it needs new beginners, and yet perhaps members are going to drop out?
I'd like to say something on that respect. For up until this September, for 20 years, Pat and I have had another club. We had two clubs, one on Thursday night. And our Thursday club recently folded in September because of this happening. We got so large at one time that we were so complacent. We danced in a building that was built for square dancing also, but it was small. And we were so large that we just thought, well, we just don't need any more dancers. So we went one full year without teaching a class. And it was the worst mistake we ever made, because new blood brings in new blood. We've been dancing for 20 years, and we've just dug up all of our friends or made enemies out of all our friends, asking them to come. But you have new blood come in, they're going to bring in the next class. And when you get so complacent that your club is so large you don't need another class, it's a mistake. Believe me, we lost a club because of it. That was a 20-year-old club.
Thank you, Babs.
Well, people drop out for different reasons. You have your usual dropouts, transfers, having babies, kids growing up and things like this. And then when you get ready to start a class, who have you got to bring in new members? That's what I mean. You just don't get that complacent.
Yes, we have a gentleman at the microphone.
I'm Junior Richardson from Clinton, Oklahoma, and my wife and I have been dancing about 25 years. She's been calling for 22. And we have basically the same amount of troubles that all the rest of you are having, except we have one thing new for getting new dancers. She teaches and calls at Red River Community House, and we have one afternoon a week that we work with new beginners. It's a family-oriented deal, and we're having feedback now that we've got new dancers coming back to dance with us this summer that's went home and taken lessons from all the callers from all over the country.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. We've just about run the end of our time. One more, please.
I'm Linda Tomeyer from the Seattle area, and I just kind of have a real quick question for the general people here. One of the callers in our organization mentioned recently that his classes this year, he went twice a week for 15 weeks, so he got in 30 classes, and he said that his dropout rate was half of what it had ever been before. Has anyone else had any experience or tried that?
Anybody care to speak to that? Yes. While the lady is coming to the microphone, I might just say that those people that work with dancers in the retirement areas where they dance maybe 3 times a day for a shorter number of weeks do not have that dropout problem. But of course, they're really snowbirds. They dance for a shorter period of time, but they find that the continuity is much greater and much easier for them to keep up. Yes, please.
My name is Marcy Yoder from Hillsboro, Oregon, in the Portland area. We called for a club that had classes 2 nights a week. It was 70 miles round trip for us, so it got a little rough. But once you can get your people to come, and if they're enjoying themselves, 2 nights a week is fantastic. It was hard for us when we learned to wait till Friday. Mm-hmm. So we really enjoyed it, and I think we lost maybe 1 or 2 couples out of the class. We had like 3 and 4 squares, and they've stayed. The retention is fantastic.
Great. So if you have the time, you've got that many nights in the week. The idea is it does work. All right, this will be our last speaker.
I'm sure, I'm Mary Jo Smith from Victoria, Texas. I'm sure other clubs have done this. We had a class about
3 or 4 years ago, and they taped every lesson themselves. We didn't, they did. And they all got together, nearly all of them, on another night, and they danced our tapes. And they enjoyed that so much, even though it was the same dance, but they